Judy Cleveland, and I'm a registered nurse. I work at St. Mary's in San Francisco in the cardiac catheterization lab.
Thank you.
My father was best friends with this man who owned a nursing home and Upland Convalescent Home, it was called, Upland, California. And so I worked as like a nurse's aide, which is a pretty awful job. And and then I went to college. In my first year, I was majoring in psychology, and I didn't know, what I would do with that, and I didn't know why I was majoring in psychology. And then I went back. I mean, that summer after my first year, I worked at Upland Convalescent again, and then I just thought, oh, maybe I could be a nurse. So at my college, I went to San Diego State. It The nursing school was impacted because it was so many people wanted to be nurses,
Very
just like now,
competitive.
just like now. So it's gone through cycles through the years. But when I was applying, it was the same thing to nursing school. I was actually thinking I'd like to have a job that I can make some money at, and I saw other people graduating from college, even back when we were going to college, and not being able to get jobs. And so I thought, being a nurse is something that you learn a skill in, and then you can get a job. No matter what all my friends were doing, messing around, and I was studying. So, it just kind of went from there. Um, I'd say no. I didn't always I didn't always want to be a nurse, but and I didn't always want to be a nurse. And when I was applying to college, so that would have been like in the late '60s. Girls were not always encouraged to go to college, and if you did go to college, it was more for things like nursing, teaching. Girls didn't go to medical school very often, or didn't become scientists, or it was like women were still really put in certain categories. And so it wasn't until I was a little bit older, but I was in college. But and I was going to college in the kind of '70s when it was like women power, girl power,
Yeah.
and everything. And that's when I started thinking, wow, and I started meeting some doctors, and I was thinking I could have done what they're doing. I could have become a doctor. I mean, it never made me not like nursing. I always liked to be a nurse once I became a nurse, but I always felt like I probably could have gone to medical
It was
school.
just like the time, I
Yeah,
guess.
it was at the time it was kind of unattainable. But I was happy, that I got in San Diego State, and I was happy I graduated from there, and I'm always been pretty happy to be a nurse. I mean, there's frustrating things, of course, but in general, I like it. So, but I didn't grow up thinking I was going to be a nurse. But the thing about nursing and medicine in general, any kind of medical thing you do, is if you don't like one area of it, you can do something else. I mean, with your dad, he's kind of in one area of it,
Yeah.
but in nursing,
There's so many different
you
things
can
you
do
with
a lot.
nursing.
Like
Yeah.
you can go into adult something or other, and if you don't like it, you can change to babies or
Yeah.
kids or psychiatry.
I think
or,
that's what
you know.
like draws me most to like a nursing career because there's so many different things you can do with it.
Chip, you're distracting.
Okay.
Yeah, that's true. It's true. Okay, the best parts are the patients.
Mhm.
It's so great to, be able to touch someone's lives when they come in, they're sick and they're scared, or, and in cardiology, the job I have now, which I've done for like the last 15 years, so it's kind of what my most memory is about. We have a lot of patients that don't speak English, mostly Cantonese, and
Especially in San Francisco.
yeah, here because that's where I've been. But you don't even have to really speak the same language as a patient. You can do a lot of non-talking communication, and like I take care of patients. Like we admit a patient for the day, kind of, and then they go and have the cath the test or whatever test they're having. And then if they don't have to stay overnight, then we discharge them. So they're with us from, like 7 in the morning till 3 in the afternoon sometimes. And, even if you don't speak the same language, a lot of times you just touch people by smiling or, putting your hand on their arm. And, usually by the end you get a hug and you're best buddies with people you can hardly talk to, So, and we use translators,
Yeah.
and we do communicate, but I just like that part of it. And it's like a family in a way, and you get mad at people sometimes, just like you get in arguments with your family, but you either apologize or you just walk away from it, and things get better. So, that part is not bad. Now, there are things I don't like, and that is more has to do with like the politics above us, like in the administration.
Yeah.
And like our hospital, St. Mary's, used to be Catholic Healthcare West for ever. And then all of a sudden it was bought by another company, Dignity. And we were just told about it one day in a meeting, just, I don't know, just because I'd been working at the nursing home and because I was majoring in psychology, and it seemed dumb, like I wasn't going to become a psychologist. And I think one of my friends who was a year older than me was going into nursing too, and I think that sort of, sparked an interest in me. And I was kind of looking around for what can I do, because you have to, when you're in college, you have to eventually pick a major or something. So it was all those things kind of combined, not one thing, specifically. So, well, I get up at 5, and I have to be at work at 7. So I like a little routine here in the morning with a cup of coffee and the computer, and I waste a lot of time. Yeah, I have to play around with him and feed him, and then I get to work, and my regular routine has been really disrupted because we're under construction. And so the area where we used to admit patients down in the cardiology department is gone. There's going to be a new lab there, and they're redoing our little area. But so we've had to move everything out, and we have to admit patients up on the 3rd floor, and we do some procedures on B level. So we're kind of all over the hospital. And in the cath lab, that area in between the 2 labs where all the computers are, that's like where the nurses hang out now, where we all hang out kind of. And so it's just different, and we don't have our space anymore. But we do procedures during the day on the heart. We do cardiac catheterizations and pacemaker changes, and we put in new pacemakers, and then usually at the end of the day, we're just sort of wrapping up everything, calling patients for the next day. Sometimes I have a meeting to go to, and that's kind of about it. The thing that nurses can do is work at one hospital and get all your benefits from there, and then go to another hospital and work on your days. There's, many things that you can do. School nursing, and you can do like the public health nursing, where you drive around to people's houses and, go in, and some people who can't get to hospitals for dressing changes, or they're diabetic, or, they need education, or, so there's just tons of areas that you can look into if you decide to be a nurse. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. That's it?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to run over to my jacuzzi.
Thank you.